I believe Director Knowles is going to report on that group, and you can also mention. Who was that?
Who was that?
I mean, put at least from the board perspective.
Okay, so I can't remember the exact date that we met, but it was also urgent for us. But Directors Regan and Sargent participated in this deep dive on online learning. And board members have all seen the chart that has the 5 different levels, tiers for online learning. So we began our discussion with what we currently have in existence, and that is the blended learning model, and also we do some work with credit recovery. The budget proposal that has an increase of about $400,000, or from $400,000 to $685,000, mostly for teaching FTE, small amount for curriculum development, and moves this from those 2 tiers that we had before to doing credit recovery, handling special populations like teen pregnancy, expelled students, students with medical conditions, those kinds of populations, a little bit on proficiency, and then combining small numbers of students in a number of different schools that may need a particular class, the ability to do that online for that group, for example, with algebra or Spanish or some other classes that have students, small numbers of students at different schools, that we can combine them all into one class online. So there were 2 other major areas of discussion. One was around what does a class size look like for this, and both of these focused around revenue. So is there a revenue savings there depending on how many students you can have in a class at a time? And then also one around, is online learning a revenue generation model for the district? The information provided by staff showed that staffing is comparable to regular classroom sizes. There were several other districts that the staff pulled from to show that it's about a 30-to-1 ratio per period for teachers, about 180 students per teacher. And they also brought up the fact that NCAA and the NCLB, if we don't have a waiver, require highly qualified teachers for these online classes. And then, as I mentioned before, in these classes, because the reason why you need to have 30-to-1 or 180, or the reason the staff provided for us, was that the teachers are on 24/7 for individualized student attention as compared to being in front of a class of 30 or however many students and having just them there and being able to answer their questions at that time. There was also some discussion around revenue generation and whether their online learning would provide a revenue generation for the district. Most of that had to do on whether we could become a place where students would come to do online learning. The staff showed us showed some examples of that, and whether that most of the time the cost has been neutral. It costs as much to get the program up and running as it costs to as it would in what our regular revenue is. I think in the end, what we asked the staff to do was to continue to investigate these online learning. We are still interested in moving beyond just these 2 or 3 tiers that we are currently looking at. And so we asked them for doing some additional best practices around the country to see what other districts are doing. They did give us some information about what's happening in just Oregon. But we asked them to go beyond that and see what was happening in other parts of the country around revenue generation, if there were other districts that were able to do this in a way that would provide more revenue for the district, and also to investigate further the issue of how many students each teacher could work with. So, and then you guys, other?
Yeah. I think the only thing I would add is that the staff is proposing
some expansion kind of as a pilot program. So we're going to try out some new ways of using online learning for different populations of students. And then we're expecting that staff will report back to us on how it goes next year. And then we can look at opportunities for further expansion, particularly in a maybe more revenue-friendly environment in the next biennium. Aren't we all hoping for a better situation in the next biennium? So that was that made sense to us, I think, as board members, that we'll start out improving the services for students who are looking for credit recovery, so that we get a higher percentage of them actually recovering credits, and then we'll look at expansion over time as we see what techniques work best.